Do you know Matt?
Yeah, we know each other. Hey, man.
I don't know. What do we?
What-
I don't know what we do. Brother, man. Good to see you. All right, guys. I was jogging, and I'm gonna come back dressed to the nines. I promise.
Listen, look at how I'm dressed.
You look great. Well, talk to me, Spike. What's going on? What are we doing here?
We are out here knocking on doors for Nate Atkins, Minneapolis's next mayor. We got this really sweet literature that we're handing out, and we're just letting the people in Minneapolis know that they have another choice. The DFL has failed here. The Republicans aren't going to do any better. It's time for liberty. It's interesting. We went to the George Floyd Square before we started doing the door knocking, and it's interesting how things have changed so much. It's almost like everything that happened last year has kind of settled in. And when I say settled in, I don't mean that things have necessarily gotten better. It's everyone has gotten used to this being the new baseline. And while that's good from a stability standpoint, it's a problem in that we don't want people to say, okay, police are going to act this way and it's just going to be that way. We're going to have police occasionally murdering people and then unrest in the streets in reaction to it, and that's just what things are going to be like. And the reality is, Democrats aren't going to change that. Republicans aren't going to change that. They feed on that unrest to keep people divided and to keep themselves in control. And that's never going to end until we get libertarians in office. And that starts with people like Nate. And I'm sure you have plenty to say about that. This is where you live.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know that the thing is, I mean, the city, in my opinion, is kind of being held hostage, and like Spike said, kind of being divided into like the two camps, where you have the defund and abolish the police, and then you have the people who are more or less back the blue and, you know, give the cops raises and whatever, give them tanks and F-15s. And I think libertarians actually represent a sane, sensible way of approaching it. I mean, if you ask me, we're kind of like the true independents and the ones that actually have solutions to these problems, you know. So when, you know, for me, the problems with the police, it's not about like so much hiring the right cops, although we should be doing that. It's about taking away the power and the unaccountability that they have. So it starts with things like ending qualified immunity.
Yep.
It means decriminalizing drug use and possession, or just ending the war on drugs altogether. You know, we need fewer interactions with cops. We've gotten to this point where we've over-criminalized our society. And when you do that, yeah, the cops are going to be up in your business all the time, and eventually bad things are going to happen. So let's have fewer laws for them to enforce. Let's have them, if anything, let's have them focus on important things like, you know, addressing violent crime, property crime, and things like that. Victimless crime, you know, leave people to their own, you know, because right now it's a toxic relationship between the cops and the people, and we just need to kind of break up more or less. So,
yeah. An example of the DFL response to all of this. We've seen the unrest, we've seen the demands. The demands are hold police accountable, stop having the police over-policing and over-criminalizing our communities. And what does DFL do? They put an initiative on your ballot for this next election. What is it? Question 2, which just basically, it's going to change the police department. It's going to abolish the police and turn it from the police into the public safety department. It's all going to be the same laws being enforced, the same officers, the same everything. All that's going to change is the name, and they're going to report to city council instead of the mayor. That's like responding to Derek Chauvin by giving him a nose ring and saying that you fixed it. It's not actually fixing or addressing the problem. It's virtue signaling combined with empty pandering and some rearranging of the deck chairs. Libertarians like Nate have real solutions. Ending qualified immunity, ending the war on drugs, ending cash bail, reforming the criminal justice system. These are the kinds of things that actually fix the problem. They don't just have a pithy catchphrase, and they don't just create some kind of solution that's not going to actually fix anything. It's real solutions for the real problems that people in this town are facing.
And then Nate, like, what does it mean to you to have a vice presidential, libertarian candidate to be out here, walking with you? What kind of a plane when this is over? Is there 2 of them?
What does it feel like to have a plane flying overhead,
really loud,
while I'm asking you an important question?
That's the DFL, right there.
It's exciting. I'm honored to have Spike here. Excited to have Spike here. He brings such great energy and passion to this day and this campaign, and to all the people that are involved. I'm super thankful for everything that Spike is doing. He puts a lot of stuff that into words and phrases, and he kind of gives gives voice to a lot of the things that I believe in better than I think I ever could. So it's great to have him here. You know, people rally around Spike. He's a natural leader, a great speaker, and we're just excited to have him helping us out today.
I'm honored to be here. I will go anywhere in this country. I will go anywhere in this country, as I've proven all year. I will go anywhere in this country where there are libertarians like Nate who are willing to meet people where they are, spread the message of liberty, not by just going and saying our ideas over and over again on social media. There's a place for that, but there's also a place for what Nate's doing. Actually going into the neighborhoods where people live, meeting them where they are, listening to their concerns, validating the concerns they have, and then sharing the libertarian message and how we're going to fix those problems and the solutions we have to those problems.
You know, it's about, you know, last summer when we watched the city burning and you saw people rising up, and for once they were talking about real substantial police reform issues. People were talking about things like qualified immunity, civil asset forfeiture. They were talking about the war on drugs. They were talking about a lot of different things that were uniting people. And in the following weeks, we found ourselves becoming divided again and arguing about stuff like pancake syrup, like who should be on a bottle of, you know, pancake syrup. And it was so frustrating to me because I was like, wait a second, we were onto something there. We were finally kind of coming together and good things were happening. There was people on the left and the right were actually saying, yeah, let's work to end qualified immunity. Let's work to end, you know, cash bail, end civil asset forfeiture, end no-knock warrants and raids. And then things fell apart. We became divided again, and those things kind of, you know, fell to the wayside. And I thought, you know, I want to at least get out there and keep that message going. I want to, like, revive that and, like, remind people that these are things we need to be focused on and be fighting for.
What do you say to the people who've just lost hope around here and have been like living in a war zone for the past year? Like, how do you give them hope?
I mean, that's a tough one. It's tough to ask people to, you know, to find a way to do that. I mean, I'll say this: I was there with you, you know, last year when I was watching everything happen. I mean, it was heartbreaking. It made me feel incredibly helpless. It made you feel just really kind of small and insignificant. But I think we do need to find a way to kind of fight through that. We need to find a way to get behind the right candidates. I think that there is hope when we do look towards freedom and liberty. When we look at those as our foundation, man, there's solutions for those things. There's things that can cure our apathy, and it is the message of liberty and freedom.
The message saturates well when you meet people where they are. So I think a lot of times we often come into situations, maybe not defensively, but we expect there to be a negative or adversarial reaction because our ideas are so outside of the Overton window of, you know, what most people are saying. But the reality is most people are walking around saying this entire thing is a mess and politicians are lying to us. Even if they vote Republican or Democrat, they're still saying Republicans and Democrats lie to us and we're sick of being lied to. And if we come in, listen to what they're saying, validate their concerns and empathize with them, and then show them that we understand better than the politicians who've been lying to them how we got here and how we can fix it with libertarian solutions, it's very, very well received. I was talking last night when I was here I was in the west side of western Minnesota last weekend, and when I was flying home from the Fargo airport, I was speaking with a Minneapolis cop, and he's actually a reservist who was on his way to, I think, Kuwait. Or somewhere in the Middle East. And we were having a conversation, and, you know, he's talking about how tough his job is because he's the only white cop in his precinct or in his unit, and, you know, that he has a big target on his back. And without anything from me, he said, and the problem is you got bad cops like Chauvin out there and they're not being held accountable. And I said, well, that's why we need to get rid of qualified immunity. And he said, absolutely. By the time the conversation was over, we talked about the need to legalize drugs and end the war on drugs, not just cannabis, hold police accountable, reform the criminal justice system, and a host of other things that one would think that a cop wouldn't want to talk about. And yet he was often the one starting that conversation. The reality is we're being lied to. The media is telling us that there are two camps, neither of which fully make sense to any of us. And you just have to fall into one of those camps, or else you're some crazy person that no one should listen to. That's why nearly half of people don't vote, why half of eligible voters don't vote. Because they look at the system and go, none of that applies to me. Also last weekend, I met a lady named Shirley, and she is 70 years old. She has never voted because it never made sense to her. She assumed she was stupid. Nothing that she was hearing from politicians ever made sense to her. Then she showed up to a Bull Johnson rally. Suddenly it made sense to her. Suddenly someone was saying common sense. So it is very well received. When Nate is out here talking, when I'm out here talking, when the activists, we've had a couple dozen activists that came out to help us today, when they're out here talking, it's very well received. In terms of my energy, this is what I live for, man. Like this, when I did the campaign, I told people I'm not going anywhere. And I think everyone thought I was just saying that, and I meant that. We're just getting started, and I'm happy to do it.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
You don't have to answer this.
Okay.
You gonna run for president?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not going to be making any decisions for 2024 for at least another year. I will tell you this. I'm not against it, but I think it's more important to grow this movement. Who cares who's running next if we're just deciding who's the next person that's going to get 1, 2, 3, 4%, 5%, whatever. If we aren't actually making a serious shot for the White House, and by serious, I mean we expect to be able to win, then what's the point? Why are we doing it? I would much rather spend my time going around the country growing this movement, this liberty movement from the grassroots up. I will say this. If I am going to run in 2024, I wouldn't be doing anything differently than I am right now. If instead I'm going to keep just going out here and helping spread the movement, I wouldn't be doing anything different than I am right now. Can I do that last thing last time?
Absolutely.
That sucked.
Do you want to do that first?
I hate all of that. Okay.
Yeah,
I was like, let's do it with Amos.
Yeah, Amos, get in the shot. Seriously.
Amos, I'm going to hug Amos while I'm talking.
Yeah.
Hey,
There you go.
Minnesota Libertarians. Love is love. And we get So, Minnesota Libertarians. I am happy to be here in Minneapolis campaigning for Nate Atkins, the next mayor of Minneapolis. Last weekend, I was in the western part of the state helping Bull Johnson in his run for Congress. Minnesota needs liberty, and it's going to come from the Libertarian Party, and you can get started today. Get involved with the Libertarian Party. Do everything you can to help. Liberty will win, and when it wins, it will be because of you.
So how is everyone to deal with talking to them? Are they receptive to liberty?
Yeah, so far everyone we've been speaking with and knocking on their doors have been really receptive. They've been happy to take the literature. You know, we're really just out here, we're talking about Nate's campaign, and because we know Nate's the best conduit for them to hear more about the liberty movement. So we're getting them, and we're Nate pilling them. We're getting them involved in hearing about Nate, and it's been pretty receptive for you as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the handful of people that we've talked to so far today are very open to the things that I'm talking about. When I talk about requiring police carry professional liability insurance as a condition of employment, they're really receptive to that. They're interested in that. And it starts up a good conversation and gets them thinking. And that's really what I'm trying to do with my campaign, is just to get people thinking about this stuff and get them thinking differently.
That's great.
Cool.
You know, people like that he wants to actually hold the police and the government accountable. You know, it's easy for politicians to say they want change when, you know, years go by, the same things keep happening and happening and happening, and the people are calling BS on this. So for the things that Nate stands for, it's resonating with them. He's out there, he actually wants to reform the police and not just talk about it. He wants to end the war on drugs so that black lives can start mattering again here in Minneapolis. And the pain and suffering that people have been feeling, they are looking for solutions, and Nate's bringing it to them.
So as we get around, we've come across people who are already libertarians, and you know, they're open to the message. There's other people who, you know, might have a different candidate in mind, but when they see Nate and what he stands for, with the ranked choice voting that is happening in Minneapolis, they're putting him down as second or third. So he's getting a ton of support even on the back end for people who might be stuck in the two-party system. So I'm really happy and looking forward to that opportunity. It was pretty eye-opening seeing the changes. It was night and day basically downtown. From what I remember, the piles of garbage burning and the National Guard driving by and lights and sirens and drones everywhere, to kind of the peaceful Target shopping experience that I saw there. It really is night and day. The people, you can still tell, are somewhat rattled by what happened, you know, and trying to make sense of it all, and trying and reaching for a purpose and maybe hopefully a better ending, you know, something to say, you know, it isn't all in vain that happened.
And
Yeah,
from your
and we, you know, Nate and I walked over to George Floyd's memorial this morning. Before we came out, you know, door knocking and trying to reach the voters, you know, he wanted to go and be a part of the community and soak it in, you know, not for the first time, for, you know, the upteenth time, to really remember why he's here, right? And the pain and suffering that Minnesotans have been feeling, you know, people here in Minneapolis specifically, the minority communities, you know, he's listening to them, he's hearing them, and he wants to create positive change. And the message that we heard today from one gentleman on the street that was a witness in what happened, you know, we asked him, you know, where do we go forward from here? Of course, we need to learn from the past, but how do we move forward? And his message is that it has to start at home. We have to stop hating one another. And that's what Nate wants to do, is he wants to build the bridges that have been burnt with the local community so that we can find peace again. You know, for the number one thing that really brought me to Nate as a fellow person is he doesn't want to see anybody discriminated against for any reason, whether it be race or medical status. You know, he wants to leave it up to the individual to make these choices and understand that everybody has their own reason for how they live their life. Maybe it's medicine, maybe it's marijuana, maybe it's gay marriage, right? Maybe it's guns. For him, it's about understanding that diversity and embracing it instead of rejecting it. So I appreciate Nate for where he stands on these things.
So there's, I don't know, 12, 15 of us or more knocking doors, dropping off literature for Nate, the HoneyBadger, Atkins, running for mayor of Minneapolis as a Libertarian. He's got some better ideas than the current DFL leadership that's been destroying this city. So we're knocking on doors. Not a lot of people answering, but we're getting literature in people's, not in their mailboxes, next to their mailboxes, in their doors, in their railings, because putting it in a mailbox would be illegal. A Libertarian would never do anything against the law. I just want to say that right now. Right, Joel?
Absolutely.
So that's who I am. That's what I'm doing here today. And
Unless it's a really dumb law.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's victimless. No,
Yeah.
kidding.
I like Nate HoneyBadger. He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy, and he would govern with libertarian principles. So I think Nate wants to run because he wants everybody to be safe. We want a high level of public safety, but without all the police brutality that we've suffered in this city for a long, long time under the Democrats. And he has some ideas to change that, and I want to support him.
Because it does seem hopeless right now, like the skies above us. It seems dark and cloudy, stormy. We're still in the storm right now, and it's hard to see out of it when you're in it. So that's the feeling I'm getting when I'm talking to people, and I feel the same way. As you go from door to door, you see all kinds of signs calling for police accountability, for justice, for Black Lives Matter, for George Floyd. All of these social justice issues, they've been termed, but they stem from political doctrines and policies. And I have yet to find anyone I've talked to who thinks the current leadership of the DFL and Jacob Frey is the solution. They all know that's the problem. And that is where I'm finding the hope, and it encourages me to be out here. And I think that's the hope of the residents, that there is another way, another option, another solution, and they're embracing learning what those are, besides just more of the same, more status quo.
We've had several great conversations with real friendly people. My read is that people are open to change. It's a very democratically oriented city, of course, but I think people are open to somebody who brings new ideas, fresh ideas to some of the problems that we've had. So we had a really great conversation with somebody who is an obviously left-leaning activist, actually, for renters' rights, and hopefully we opened her mind a little bit on some of the issues. Well, I think it's probably a key time where we need to be up to our principles, and we need to be extra steadfast in fighting for freedom, fighting for individual self-ownership, and some of the things that are at the base of our philosophy. It's an opportunity to be heard by left-biased and right-biased people and present a peaceful, freedom-oriented view of the world that I don't hear from anybody else other than libertarians, actually.
I would echo that. We've been very consistent in our principles, like always, that we oppose mandates. We oppose the initiation of force to accomplish goals, political or social. And thus we oppose these mandates, which by force, by penalty of economic devastation, losing your job. You see in other countries, there's people being detained, quarantine centers, all these crazy things are locked down in their houses. And that's not a judgment on whether the vaccine is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. That's not a position on a mask, if you should wear one or shouldn't wear one. We believe it's your choice. We defend everyone's right to make the choice regarding their own body. Self-sovereignty is the core libertarian principle, and we believe that will win the day. We hope it wins the day. We hope more people stand up and speak up for that and stop going along to get along.
Torture ourselves.
Yeah. Hey kid, we're gonna go sit in our cars, and if this gets heavier, we're not gonna keep walking. If it lightens up, we'll put on raincoats and go out and walk. So we're just sitting across the intersection here. Welcome to come down and sit with us.